Hello, everyone. This is Becky from Disney in Your Day, where I've been writing about all things Disney for over 10 years now. And I am going to do some videos and hopefully podcasts to share some of my knowledge with you. I'm going to take about 10 minutes to talk about a certain topic related to Disney World planning and give you some 10-minute trip tips. I wanted to start off today by talking about Disney Lightning Lanes because that is the biggest news that has happened recently. Back in the day, we had Fast Pass, then Fast Pass Plus, Genie Plus, and now we are going to have a different system called Lightning Lanes and Lightning Lane Multi-Pass and Single Pass. So I'm going to just quickly walk you through the basics of what that is and what you should expect if you are planning a Walt Disney World trip. What is Lightning Lane? Lightning Lane is Disney's front of the line pass system so that you can wait for a shorter amount of time for some of the more popular attractions. That is the most simple explanation. The way that it's going to work, there are two types of passes that will be available. This is starting on July 24th, 2024. The first is called the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. The multi-pass will allow you to book up to 3 attractions in one theme park ahead of time before you arrive for your trip. You can select 3 Lightning Lane passes that qualify for multi-pass, which is not every attraction. The most in-demand ones are part of a different system, and I'll get to that in just a second. But you will be able to pick up to 3. They have to all be in the same park, but you can book them ahead of time. This does cost money. You have to purchase the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass in order to use it. You can decide after seeing what is available if you think that's worth it to you. On the day of your visit, you can ride your first Lightning Lane attraction at a scheduled time that you have selected. And once you have ridden your first attraction, you can then go into the app and book another Lightning Lane depending on availability. You can schedule as many as you'd like throughout the day once you've already used one, again, as long as there's availability. Simple in theory, but there are a couple of things to note. Disney Resort guests can make their bookings and purchases of Lightning Lane Multi-Pass 7 days before their check-in date if they are staying at a Disney resort. People who are not staying at a Disney resort can make their selections and purchases 3 days before their trip. And the way that works is you will be able to book for your entire trip on that first day. If you're familiar with dining reservations, it works similarly to that. So 7 days for resort guests from your check-in day, 3 days for other types of guests, depending on your ticket type, you will be able to book for the length of your ticket. So if you have 3-day tickets and you're staying off property, then 3 days before the first day you'll be in the parks, you can make your Lightning Lane selections and purchases for all 3 of your days. You can book up to 3 Lightning Lane attractions with multi-pass in advance, but they do all have to be in the same park, at least to start. Once you get in, if you have the park hopper option on your ticket, you can then start to book attractions in other theme parks. So for example, if you were going to be in Magic Kingdom for the morning and you booked 3 rides and then you used your first one and you checked for Epcot and you found that Spaceship Earth was available, you could then book Spaceship Earth for later in the day. One thing that does make this a little more tricky than some of the other systems that other theme parks use, or even that Disney has used in the past, is that there is a tier system in almost all of the parks for multi-pass. What that means is when you make those advanced selections, you can only pick one ride from what we'll call tier 1. So in Magic Kingdom, you can only book one of the following out of Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Peter Pan's Flight, and Jungle Cruise. I think that's all of them. You can only pick one of those to plan ahead of time. There are a number of other attractions that you can pick 2 of those. If you don't want to book one that's in the first tier, that's okay. You can book all 3 of yours from what is in the second tier. The only park where they're not going to have tiers right now, at least, is Animal Kingdom. So you can just pick whichever 3, again, that are part of multi-pass that you would like to do for that day. You have hour-long arrival windows to do the attractions that you choose. Then you will select those in advance. So if you booked, say, Haunted Mansion for 10 a.m., you will have between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. to go back and use that. You can also only get one lightning lane per attraction per day. So if you really love Haunted Mansion, you can't then use that 10 a.m. one and book Haunted Mansion again for 1 p.m. You have to do distinct different attractions. Now that we've talked about multi-pass, let's talk about the other part, and that's Lightning Lane single pass. Now, if you're familiar with Genie Plus and the way that Genie Plus has been working up until now, single pass will be very familiar to you because it is what they have previously been calling individual lightning lanes. It will work exactly the same way that that works now, just with a different name, Lightning Lane Single Pass. And this is typically one, occasionally two attractions in each park. These are the most popular, most in-demand attractions, the ones that will have the longest lines. So we're talking about Tron, we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, Avatar Flight of Passage, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is the only other one right now. Magic Kingdom is the only one that currently has two single passes. Let's get to a little bit of opinion time. And people have been asking me, is this change good? Is it for the better? What should I know? I will say overall, I do feel this is a big improvement for how everything will work. And there's a couple of reasons why I feel this way. It's not perfect. It's not like there's nothing wrong with it, but when we're comparing Genie Plus to Lightning Lane passes, this is definitely a step in the right direction. At least for me personally, depending on how other people approach the parks and how they like to do it, they might have different opinions. I come from out of state. I'm in Pennsylvania. I am making I am traveling to be there. So for me, advanced planning is something I'm already doing anyway, and I like to be able to do it ahead of time and not while I'm there day of. So that's the biggest advantage in a lot of ways for me. There was some anxiety with Genie Plus where I might plan to go to Epcot in the morning and really want to do Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. But if I couldn't get an individual lightning lane for it for that day, if I missed it, I was just out of luck. Now at least I'll know 7 days ahead of time and I can potentially move around my schedule. Now, you might not be able to change everything with dining reservations and all of that, but at least you know going into it and not when you wake up that morning, which is the other big improvement in my opinion. Booking in advance means you don't have to book at 7 a.m. With Genie Plus. You booked day of, and the earliest you could do that was 7 a.m. So you pretty much had to wake up at 6:45 in the morning every morning of your vacation that you were going to make use of lightning lanes. I am sometimes up that early, especially for rope drop, only on Disney trips, pretty much never in real life, but sometimes I want to sleep in. So I am a big fan of this change. You can select your rides before you finalize your purchase because then it feels like you're getting the value that is worth it to you, because people always ask, is Genie Plus worth it? Should I spend X amount of money to get Genie Plus? Will I get what I want out of it? And there was no way to know. You would wake up that morning, find out the price, pay for it, book one ride, and then cross your fingers later in the day when you went to book your next one that there were other things that would feel like it was worth it. You had to use a lot of strategy and savviness to be able to kind of optimize that. And so I think this will be a little bit easier, and it feels like you know what you're getting for your money. And when I pay for stuff, I want to know what I'm getting. So I appreciate that part too. I'm also someone that pretty much always stays on Disney property. So having an advantage as a Disney resort guest is frankly really nice. It's nice to have another perk. It's nice to know that I will probably get to be able to book the rides that I want to book for my trip and not have to worry about it. A couple of things that I don't necessarily love about it. And the first is that you do lose some flexibility in your vacation when you have to plan everything ahead of time. It is a lot to be planning not only dining reservations, but picking out 3 to 5 attractions that you'll do ahead of time. It is true that you lose that flexibility, spontaneity. You just have a very scheduled vacation, but that kind of is just the way Disney is, I think. And for me, I've just gotten used to it, and I schedule things and then just work around them. Another bit of a disadvantage is multi-pass and single pass, I feel is still confusing. I understand that there is higher demand for these bigger attractions. I understand that it could be difficult to just put something like Guardians of the Galaxy into the regular multi-pass because it would probably book up really, really quickly and not everyone would get a chance that would want it. But that's probably going to be true with single pass anyway. And I think simplifying things is what Disney really needs to focus on now. I believe people will pay money for this if they feel like they're getting a good value out of it. But when they will stop paying money is when it's too confusing and they don't know how it works, because then they feel like they're missing out on something and they're not getting their value for that money. We also will still have virtual queues for a couple of attractions. So you're going to throw that into the mix as well. Again, just making things more complicated. I think simple is the direction that they really need to go. Plus, virtual queues means I'm still getting up at 6:45 certain mornings. So not loving that part. I'd love to see some sort of announcement about maybe getting rid of virtual queues and just having standby lines for those rides. Finally, as someone who park hops a lot and doesn't necessarily need to do a ton of attractions in one park, I don't love that my 3 attractions all have to be in the same park when I do my advanced booking. I do recognize that most families will probably be focusing on one park at least for a good portion of the day and don't park hop as much as I might. So that's just a personal negative for me when I evaluate whether or not I'm going to purchase Lightning Lane passes for my trip. Speaking of, I have a trip coming up in September, and so I will be thinking about, do I purchase multi-pass, single pass, any sort of pass for every day that I'm in the parks for certain days? And I'm still working all of that out. I think I probably will be making use of it so I can check it out, see how things work, and give you some updates on my thoughts at that time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, for learning a little bit more about Disney. And I hope that some of my knowledge has been helpful to you. If you want to learn more about honestly anything Disney, please head to my blog or social media, Disney in Your Day, disneyinyourday.com. You can find all sorts of resources there, whether you're looking for Disney World planning tips or you want to continue the Disney magic at home. Make sure to check out the website. Thanks so much. Have a magical day.